Each Mic check 1 2. What it do? Welcome back to the Mic Check podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champ. Thanks for tapping in. Today we're talking about Shedeur Sanders and his opportunity and hope to win the Heisman Trophy in 2023. But before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate that feedback. All right, guys, let's talk about it. Coach Prime, Shedeur Sanders, Shiloh Sanders, Dylan Edwards, the Colorado Buffaloes. This is the biggest talk in sports, definitely the biggest talk in college football, outside of the upset of my Longhorns over the Alabama Crimson Tide. But that's for another day. Let's talk about Shedeur. So, number 2, as they call him, aka Grown, the quarterback and leader of the Colorado Buffaloes here in this 2023-24 season, is really making a name for himself right away as he stepped into college football on the P5 level, the big boys, as they say. And in his first game, he threw for 510 yards. He followed that up with 393 in the second game. And he's led a 1-win team from 2022 to 2 wins already to open the season in 2023. This is all very important because when you start to talk about if a player is a Heisman candidate, something that you've got to keep in the back and front of your mind is the fact that voters tend to pick winners, players from winning teams, and they tend to lean towards quarterbacks. So while there's a couple other legitimate players who may find a way to become a Heisman Trophy candidate, Shedeur Sanders is definitely positioned best to win it. I'd say the number 2 on their roster with an opportunity is Travis Hunter because he does play both sides of the ball, so he can impact the game in a couple of different ways. A major difference between him and other two-way player that won the Heisman, Desmond Howard, is that, Desmond Howard, Charles Woodson. The difference is Woodson also returned kicks. Travis Hunter doesn't do that, so he doesn't have that extra touch every game. And this kid's also playing a lot of snaps, which I think maybe later in the year might start to taper off and could hurt his chances if he's actually in the running. Dylan Edwards, he's got a couple ways to get to it. He can catch and he can run the ball. And then you've got a couple receivers that have a good opportunity to make some noise in the Heisman race too. Unfortunately, anybody that's a receiver or relies on pass catches and receiving yards, they're actually also buffering the stats of Shedeur Sanders. So their opportunity to surpass him weakens as they gain more receiving yards. Now back to the quarterback. I think that Shedeur is he's doing what he needs to do at this point in the season. Like I said, his team is 2-0. He's 69 of 89, so he's got a 77% completion percentage. This is a career high so far. 903 yards through 2 games. His season high has been 37.52, which he threw for in the second year at Jackson State. And he's averaging 10.1 air yards per pass. He's already got 6 TDs in the air and 1 on the ground. Now, he has been sacked 11 times. His career high in sacks was 35 at Jackson State in his freshman season. Now, here's another thing I want to point out. Now, 903 yards, that's a quarter of what he got in his best season at Jackson State against what's considered subpar competition. He's already got that in 2 games at the big boy level. So this tells you what kind of level this kid is operating at already coming in. I think those 2 seasons really were like prep school for him. He got a chance to play on TV, get used to the media and being a media darling and being the dog whenever the team loses, like in the Celebration Bowl. So he's been through that stuff. So now when you go into a hostile environment, like when they went to TCU and everybody's booing, he don't care about that. He came there to win and he did just that. Then you play at home with all the bright lights. College game day is coming there next week when they host Colorado State. All of these types of things are around you. And you've got all these celebrities on the sideline, and he's used to that because Coach Prime has put him in position. I'm going to close on this note as well. So part of the formula for winning the Heisman is number 1, performance. Number 2, your team should be winning. And number 3, you've got to have a great marketing scheme. Well, guess what Deion Sanders is doing? Every time he does a post-game interview, he mentions the Heisman. You don't really hear coaches talk about that type of thing because they're, I guess they don't want to jinx it. A lot of sports people are superstitious, so they just don't want to jinx it, or they don't want to put the focus on one player. He doesn't let his players shy away from the spotlight. He thrusts them into the spotlight by saying things like, I have 3 or 4 guys who should be competitive for the Heisman. And he keeps mentioning Shedeur. This is great marketing. He's putting him in the position to win the trophy, or at least be in a conversation, as long as the team is successful. If they can win 8 to 10 games, and that's very plausible at this point, if they can win 8 to 10 games, he could very well be in that conversation. He doesn't have to be a national championship competitor to get it, but he just needs to be a really solid player and keep up the statistical performance. And then his team needs to just hit that W column on a regular basis. And outside of a USC team who looks really strong, I don't see a lot of games where they shouldn't either be very slight underdogs or maybe even flip to favorites now that they've come out and won the way that they did. He dominated Nebraska. Even with the slow start in the first half, he came back. And these are the types of performances that will add up. If he cleans up the sacks, it's going to be real good. But I'd rather him get sacked and live to play another play than throw some bad passes and get interceptions. So that's another thing. He's protecting the ball. 0 turnovers for him so far. So we'll see if there's a letdown, even though Colorado State is a, in-state rival. Maybe the intensity is there. I just don't want to see this team have a letdown. And I think when you're in the spotlight like this, you have a very small margin for error. And Coach Prime is aware of this because he's been at the highest level at college and pro. So I think he knows exactly what to do to get his team prepared. And Shedeur Sanders is making him look like a freaking genius by following his son into the college ranks and then sticking with him and putting him in the position to actually be competitive for a Heisman. So we'd love to get you guys' thoughts. This has been T for the Mike Check Podcast. Is Shedeur Sanders the next Heisman Trophy winner? That remains to be seen. Until the next time, I'm out. Peace.